What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking back into Brew TV. Appreciate to have you here. Back again with where I was right, where I was wrong. This time with the second round of the NBA playoffs. Anything I got wrong, I will denote with an X, and anything I called right, it will get 2 check marks if I called it with the correct amount of games, and 1 check mark if I called the winner correct without the correct amount of games. As always, for anything I got wrong, I will give my revised picks and predictions based on the actual outcome. All right, let's start the Western Conference. OKC versus Lakers. I picked the Thunder to sweep, and that is exactly what they did. They did not disappoint. I had all the faith in the world that the Thunder would get rid of the Los Angeles Lakers quickly. There was only one game, which was the Lakers' pure desperation game, in which the game was even remotely close. OKC generally beat the bricks off the Lakers in the second half, especially. I thought the Lakers would have got their asses kicked even with Luka Doncic, so without him, it was a definite sweep. I think with Luka, it might have went 5, maybe 6 at the most, but nah, the Lakers just aren't as good, and the Thunder are a well-oiled machine, and they have a great offense and a great defense. And, Shea wasn't even, he didn't play up to his standards. He wasn't horrible, but he definitely didn't play up to his standards. And even with that, the series wasn't close. All right, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the San Antonio Spurs. Originally, I had the Nuggets instead of the Wolves, but I called that wrong. But in my revisions, I picked the Spurs to win in 6, and that is exactly what they did. They won in a 6. And my synopsis was, I understand the Wolves are a gritty team. They have a lot of heart. They're dealing with some injuries. Some players not there at all. Some hobbled. But even with that being said, all that heart is great. It might be good enough to win you a game or two, but ultimately the Spurs are just that much better top to bottom. And they have the best player in the series on their team in Wemby. And the Wolves weren't going to get more than 2 games off the Spurs, and they did it. It's really that simple. The Spurs are just in a different class than the Timberwolves. Even if the Wolves were healthy, if Ant was 100, if DiVincenzo was there, if everybody else was squared away, I still don't see the Timberwolves forcing this 7. I just don't. San Antonio has too many different players that can do a variety of different things, even when Wemby's not around. And with Wemby on the floor, the havoc he causes, that he wreaks, especially on the defensive end of the floor. So it is what it is. Thank you, Western Conference teams, for taking care of business as I predicted. You make this easy for me. As for the Eastern Conference, first I want to say a big fuck you to the Detroit Pistons. I was hoping I would go into this video not having to make any edits, but here we go. I'm going to have to make edits now. I called this one wrong. I picked the Pistons to win this in 6, but the Pistons actually lost in 7. I put a video out recently, my short recap specifically of Game 7 and a little bit about the series, but ultimately, the Detroit Pistons, games 1 through 6, obviously they won 3 of them, but, their defense was good enough to hold it down while their offense may not have been up to par. But in Game 7, the Detroit Pistons didn't show up on all. They didn't show up at all. Either end of the floor, they didn't show up. James Harden laid an egg. James Harden showed up to the party exactly how we expected James Harden to show up to the party. Game 7, James Harden. Problem is, every member of the Detroit Pistons was a Game 7 James Harden as well. And shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers front court for holding it down. They definitely brought it in Game 7 and set the table, set the stage for how the rest of the team needs to play. And Donovan Mitchell had himself a game, as did the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was okay with picking the Pistons, knowing that their defense could be consistent. Defense is effort. Sometimes you just might have a bad shooting day collectively as a team. Maybe your best player doesn't show up, but the defense can always be a constant. But in Game 7 on their home floor, the defense didn't show up to the party. And when your offense is already sus, it's not going to be good for you. That's all I got to say about that. New York Knicks and Philly. I picked the Knicks to win this in 6, but the Knicks actually swept, and the Knicks are on a bit of a roll. I don't know if this is going to be indicative of what happens from the Knicks in future round. I don't know if they're actually the team that we're seeing, or The Atlanta Hawks are just not that good comparatively, and the Philadelphia 76ers aren't that good comparatively. I really don't know how to evaluate the Knicks. I don't know if they can be this good against a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, but we'll find out here soon for sure. Nonetheless, the Knicks are taking care of business like they're supposed to, and they are taking care of business convincingly. Over their last, 6 games? I think like 5 of those games, they were all blowouts if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But most of those games weren't close. And they've definitely made some changes to the team. Jalen Brunson has come off the ball more, and they've run more facilitation. Surprise, surprise, through Karl Anthony Towns, who's taken on this new role as facilitator / scorer. Almost like a... I don't want to make that comparison. I'm not going to make that comparison. I almost went there, but I'm not going to go there. But they're doing what they're supposed to do in their role. The bench is showing up. Players that were inconsistent are now being consistent and in big ways. Big ways. Mikal Bridges, who's been getting slandered all season, showing up. Alvarado doing Alvarado things. OG Anunoby, and he got hurt, and people were worried about that. And the Knicks still took care of business without OG. McBride, Hart, all those guys. I got nothing bad to say about the Knicks, surprisingly. And Embiid, like I said in my last video, you never know with him. He's always a few seconds away from being injured, from being hobbled, and sure enough, that was happening. A plethora of knickknacks all over his body, and the 76ers just didn't have enough. As far as revisions go, I only have to revise one bracket here. So, thank you, Detroit Pistons, for making me work just a little bit harder. Now that we have the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers, what do I think about this series? Well, given the data, given what I've seen here lately, it would be very hard not to pick the New York Knicks. We know who the Cleveland Cavaliers are. I know one of their best players on the team is going to show up for maybe 60% of the series, maybe 50% of the series. You know who I'm talking about, James Harden. Donovan Mitchell might have 1 or 2 bad clunkers depending on how long the series goes. I expect consistency from their front court. They usually get easy looks at the basket, clean up around the rim, get lob plays. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns, Cat probably won't pose much opposition. He should with his length, but I expect some of the other front court players to be a bit more physical with the front line of the Cleveland Cavaliers than I would expect Cat to. No shade, it's just who he is. But, I've seen crazier things happen. But, I have to go with the New York Knicks. And I'm picking the New York Knicks in 5 based on what I've seen. I was going to go 6. I was going to be like, I can't disrespect Cleveland like that. I got to give them 2 games. But seeing how they went 7 with a team that's so offensively challenged and the Detroit Pistons, they're going to have a lot more to keep up with the New York Knicks, who do not have those offensive woes. They're looking like a well-oiled offensive machine right now. And they got more than one player that can go get a bucket. They got more than one player that can facilitate, unlike the Detroit Pistons. And the Knicks aren't a slouch defensively. They've shown that, especially here in the playoffs. So, given the Knicks' consistency as of late, and the Cleveland Cavaliers' inconsistency, and also coupled with the fact that the Cavaliers just don't have as much talent top to bottom, I really see the New York Knicks taking this in a gentleman's sweep. I really do. I definitely think the front court of the Cleveland Cavaliers pose some kind of challenge as far as scoring in the interior, but we got a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, and I'm not a big fan of his three-point shooting, but he will definitely pull some of those bigs out the paint, being that he is a perimeter threat. That has some weight in the decision making. I know that's not going to be the go-to every single possession, but it'll definitely help exploit some of the weaknesses and chinks in the armor in the Cleveland Cavaliers. I also believe that the Knicks have a variety of players that they can throw at Donovan Mitchell to give him different looks and aggravate him on the defensive end and not make things particularly easy for him. And look out for Hart. that little dude be rebounding. He be mixing it up there with the Giants. That's why I love Josh Hart. He be out there with the Giants in the paint, grabbing rebounds, getting second chance opportunities. So for the bigs on Cleveland, watch your back, because Josh Hart will be climbing it. With that being said, the NBA Finals now, in my opinion, will be the Oklahoma City Thunder and the New York Knickerbockers. Well, I guess I got to revise 2 brackets. I didn't think about the finals. So yeah, Knicks and Thunder in the finals. The Knicks have always been a team that I've said this season, through their inconsistencies in the regular season, I said they're good enough. They have the talent and they're good enough to play with anybody in the league. The problem is, so many times they don't show up or they play down to the level of their opponent. But I've seen them in their matchups against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and in my opinion, they played them very well. And with that being said, I think the Thunder will win. But believe it or not, I'm going with the Oklahoma City Thunder in 7. Yes, I think it will go 7 games. With the final game being Oklahoma, and they will thrive off that energy at home, and they will take the championship home for 2 straight back-to-back. I think these 2 teams match up very, 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 very well against each other. Chet and Cat have a somewhat similar skill set, so that's going to be interesting to see how that plans out. The Brunson SGA matchup is going to be fun. Both of these guys get things going for the offense. Brunson is more off ball now. I don't think Brunson will be guarding SGA. I think that'll probably be more of maybe Bridges, but I'm sure he'll get different looks. Don't get me wrong. I just think Brunson's giving up too much size, and SGA is already great at creating space as is. But both of these teams are going to be moving that ball around, and a lot of guys are going to be getting open looks. But the thing is, I think the OKC Thunder, their defense is just that much better, consistently at least, than the New York Knicks. And I think that'll be the big difference in this series, along with the home court. But crazier things have happened. Those are my revisions. Y'all let me know what you think about it. Pop off in the comment section. Express your opinions. I appreciate you all. And let's see how these playoffs pan out. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.